We have been homeschooling since 1995, I believe. And one of the first people that I ran into in teaching how on earth do you do this journey is somebody I'm really excited to have on today. It's almost like having a movie star on or something, all kinds of fun. So I'm really looking forward to this. If you've ever considered homeschooling or you're in the thick of it, then you will definitely want to listen today. You may hear birds in the background, my husband on the tractor, or the children playing with the dogs. This is Real Life on the Prairie with Donita Fogelman of prairiedusttrail.com, weathering the dust storms of life with God's divine help. And I have with me today Cindy Rushton. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I remember going through your stuff, and the printouts that you had were so pretty, and all the pretty little decorations, and you just now we have Etsy. Whenever I first started homeschooling, we didn't have internet. I mean, it was just very we just got internet about that time out here in Oklahoma. And so there just wasn't, I had to mail requests for catalogs from, and it was mostly, Christian school catalogs, Christian school curriculums and stuff. And sometimes you had to send $1 or $2 with it to get the catalog.
I
And
remember these days.
yes, yes. The youngsters don't know how well they've got it. We did not have Etsy or Teachers Pay Teachers or all those different things where you could just go on there and go shopping for neat printables and stuff. That was not available. And you were one of the first one. You're the first one that I was introduced to. It was actually a friend who I kind of got into the homeschooling. And she started homeschooling hers, and she's like, "You've got to listen to this." And so we got, I think it was cassette tapes. Maybe it was a
It was
download. I can't.
cassette tapes, then
Yeah,
download.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was that long ago.
I love
It,
it.
it was wonderful. And I've always loved the way you're so encouraging. You bring that encouragement from kind of a hard place in your life. Can you tell a little bit of your testimony?
Oh man, wow. Thank you for that. Because, yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that probably is a fallacy for many people is thinking that because people have such a passion for coming alongside of you or encouraging you or being there for you when you go through difficult times or even happy times. But the fallacy is that they have not gone there themselves, that they couldn't have because they're just too upbeat or whatever. And yet, seriously, the passion behind so much of what I've done it has really been fired up through the fires of different things that have gone on in life. And one of the in particular difficult seasons was a season that I lost 7 babies that we know of, that, positive pregnancy tests, going through all of that. That was a very, very difficult time. But what happened during that time was it drew me so much more passionately in love with the Lord, in love with family. My children are literally, I say that if not to make light of people's struggles, but if I had a cardboard sign, it would say, "We'll work for plane tickets."
Yeah.
Because I love getting to be with my family. My kids are both grown, by the way, and they're in the Army, both of them. And so there's some of the difficulties of even letting go and seeing your like my son's been in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's had, what is that, maybe 12 other deployments, and with little, Central and South America. So some of that's the letting go with your kids when they grow up. And some of it is, being a military mom. Some of it is, my daughter had a season last year of, was it 2 pregnancy losses or 3. I think it's 3 pregnancy losses, and I should know that number. But but she just had a baby a few weeks ago,
Oh,
and I call him her redemption baby. He's just such a beautiful, precious, precious treasure. I actually have a picture. Just kidding. I'm not gonna pull it out.
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
It's really right here.
I've
But
got mine up here too. Yeah.
mhm. But,
I,
oh,
I know whenever I was introduced to you, I was struggling with an ectopic pregnancy.
yes, yes.
And
Oh,
my mother-in-law had sat at the hospital bed as they were prepping me for my second cesarean
mhm.
and begged me not to have my tubes tied. And I thought I knew what I was doing. And the doctor said, you can only have 2 or 3 cesareans, and all that hoo-ha. And a few years later, of course, I regretted it. And she had passed away, and my babies were growing, and I regretted it, something awful, and then ended up with that awful pain. And we ended up having a reversal and having 4 more. So praise the
Wow, wow.
Lord. But
Yeah.
your testimony during that time was huge for
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.
It just helped to carry me through, and everything that you do that I've seen, it is about the Lord.
Everything.
And I love that, because we did at the beginning of the internet coming in and blogging and all those things. So many Christian women tried to separate their blog from their faith.
Mm.
And I did not understand, how can you do that? God is,
Don't either.
I'm glad to see them coming out of the woodwork now,
Yeah, yeah.
and to stop doing that. But yeah, that is just huge.
Mhm.
So 2 in the military. We're still
Yeah.
homeschooling 1. We have a 16-year-old. That's the youngest. But yeah, I understand the having to let go. Our 2 married
Yes.
ones do live close, but
Mhm.
yeah, we go through all these things. And homeschooler, people who don't understand homeschooler, the big question or the thing that I get told most is, oh, I would never have the patience. How do you
I
answer that one?
Oh, if well, that would be another fallacy. Because I just look at it and know, I mean, I didn't have patience for so many things. First of all, God had to kind of get my attention many times of just to show me, Cindy, I want you here. Your chief role is going to be their cheerleader. And it I look back and that's still my chief role all these years. My son's now 35 and my daughter's 32 and they've got their little ones. And um, I look at life, it was pretty much being able to sit there and I still am in awe of all the things I was blessed to get to do alongside of them and learn alongside of them. And no, I am probably the most impatient person. And I remember early on having a correction from us. I've been blessed through my whole life to have a lot of godly mentors, women that poured into my life. But I remember specifically some of the older ladies saying, "Oh, Cindy, enjoy the process, enjoy the destin, the enjoy the journey." Not, and you see that in my writing and in my teaching a
Yes,
lot.
yes,
Enjoy
yes.
the journey, because I remember one day I was actually on the road traveling and I was in the most beautiful area. It was like between Alabama and Chattanooga. It's so gorgeous through there. Mountains and, it's just stunning. And I remember sitting in the car going, goodness, I wish we could just get there. And it was like I could hear the Holy Spirit speaking to my heart saying, enjoy this journey. And as I looked around, I was like, this is really pretty. And I missed too much wanting to be there already. And I look back and I think that was some of the stuff that started in the early years of my homeschooling. And God literally corrected that by the people that poured into me, but also things began to be fun, like to get to teach a child to read. I'll get teary because I'm now on this other side of this, but to teach a child to read, and it's so painful. when,
Thank you for saying that.
it's so painful, especially those of you who are Southern mothers.
Oh, I did not realize how bad my accent was until we're reading about oil. Okay. Something about, the virgins and their oil. And Catherine, our oldest, is sitting there. Oh,
Ah,
I
that's
finally
so
had to
awesome.
say, sweetheart, it's oil. It's I know it's oi, but it's oil. Just remember it.
Oh, see, we can make that into 3 syllables. And so try teaching a Southern child to read. And, he could make am be am, I'm
Uh-huh.
going, did that
Yeah.
have an I in it? I don't even know at this point. Did that have an I and an E and a, okay, whatever. But, I look back and I remember those fun little memories, like one funny memory, which was not funny that day, but I remember Matt reading, and he was reading to me, and I was so stinking tired. I fell over and my head knocked his head, and he was like, "Mommy, are you asleep?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been asleep. Oops." It was one of those moments that you kind of, and now I laugh about it, and it's a fun
Right.
memory. It wasn't so much when I was trying to be the perfect homeschool mom,
Oh,
which
yes, yes. And I think that's another thing that the youngsters today don't. And I call them youngsters, the ones that are
Mhm.
trying to homeschool now. Um, that they don't realize a lot of the ones that were raised in homeschool, they don't understand how much pressure there was
Oh,
from
yeah. Yeah.
from the government, from the community, from other homeschoolers. It was huge. We were the first homeschool family in our county, in the area.
Wow.
And so the whole county took it seriously because school and football is huge out here. And it just they blackballed my husband's business. I mean, it really caused some hardship, and we really had to sacrifice to keep doing what the
Mhm.
Lord had called us to do. And they're just, we never knew when the government was going to come by and ask for, us to prove that we were educating our children. The older two girls were actually afraid. If somebody came up to our house, hardly anybody out here wears a suit, but if somebody came out up here with a suit to the house, they'd go into the woods and hide until they left. I, they don't understand.
Mhm.
In the 80s, there were parents whose children were taken away from them, who were
Mhm.
put in jail for trying to home educate their children. And there was a lot of
Mhm.
pressure. And then if you have, autoimmune disease, which wasn't even being diagnosed properly at that time, and health problems and all of these things, then you're trying to do all of this with on a one income. Yeah. And then when you're not feeling good, or in my case, I had 3 in diapers at one point,
Mm.
which was such a blessing, but oh my goodness, I was so tired. So sometimes I was, on bed rest, homeschooling in the bed. They just gathered around on the bed with me, and we
Oh,
just did
yeah.
it there. You just do what you got to do.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That was a lot of our story too. And, going back to even like, I went through the losses, for example, as I was having little ones, Elizabeth was 5, Matt was 8. So those are very important years. And, I always say this, and you probably heard me say this, that if I had known that they would get through whatever they went through, I could have relaxed. I could just relax. And I finally, I mean, even now, my son's going through a situation right now that I would just love to be on the other side of it. And I believe we will be on the other side. I don't know when. You know, when do you get to the other side of this or that? Or, you don't know that. But one of the things God has really spoke to me through the years is about, Cindy, enjoy where you are today. But also know that if it's something that they're struggling with, or something that they're having a hard time learning, or they're having a hard time getting it, they're not always going to be here. But they will remember you cheered them on when it was tough. And that is like,
It's
whether you learn
huge.
it with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that's learning to potty train, or you learn it with your 35-year-old who's going through whatever they're going through in life. That is our primary thing that I think it's easy to miss it, because trying to be perfect mommy, for example, going back to that thought, perfect mommy is more about, did things get done? How did they get done? How are you acting? How, what, it's all those things. And I think that the pressure was so on us in those early years.
Oh
And I
yeah. If
don't
you
think
went
it's,
outside of the house, they needed to be all clean and looking
mhm,
and they needed to act properly. But
yeah.
boy, if they acted up and oh yeah, I mean, there was just so much. And I've learned, and this is something I tell the younger moms today, you're gonna fail. You
Oh,
are
absolutely.
gonna fail. And I did. I failed miserably.
Yes.
But God is there and he takes up the slack.
Absolutely. Well, and, there's principles like in leadership, for example, of how do you fail? Do you fail forward? Because it should be failing forward. And yeah, I mean, I've got a whole list of things I failed with. Huge, huge list. But I look at, the journey as a whole now, and I see those were the times we all grew. Those were the times my kids figured out mom is just normal and a human, well, as normal as mom could be for a mom. But
Yeah.
but those
Mom's
were
never normal.
no, no, but they learned and they could see things that they couldn't have seen otherwise. My failures helped my children through the years to just learn, hey, she is just like me. She struggles with misspelling things. She struggles with not getting her words out on paper like they're supposed to be. She struggles with her attitude. She struggles with being tired. She struggles with not wanting to, and
Yeah.
when they got that, there was a certain respect and a certain relationship that could really evolve. That is, I mean, like, even now, my kids walk through some of the toughest times with me, and they are my cheerleaders, because guess what? They learned family. We cheer each other on. We're there for each other. And speaking of both my kids being in the military, they right now are actually in the same exact city, like at the same they're at Fort Bragg right now, both of them. And so I'm like so jealous on in a good Christian way.
Yeah.
But my kid, but like, it's so beautiful because even now I watch them and how they interact, like getting together, getting the children together. Their children are each other's best friends. And like Matt, I laughed at him. My daughter just had the baby just back a few weeks ago. And he told me, he said, Mom, it's okay. Here, let me just say this. I had predicted in a good mom way. I said, she's going to have that baby when I'm in LA for school. Sure enough, she went into labor as I was getting, flying out. And so Matt told me, he said, oh, Mom, it's okay. He said, they wouldn't let but one visitor go in. And that was me. I said, and you think that would have been the way it would have gone? No, I don't care if you had been the one. I would have somehow figured out how to get into that
Figured it
hospital to
out.
see that
Uh-huh.
grandbaby.
Yep. Yep.
But no, he was there just as this cheerleader for his sister and his sweet brother in love. And it's just so beautiful to see where they are, because one of my main reasons, people ask me, like, why did you homeschool back then when things were like, that was crazy, Cindy? But I said, I really wanted my children to have relationships, first with God, of course, then with us as their parents, but also with each other. And what happened as a result was all that. And,
Right.
it's to me, that's something that you can't teach that well, I guess you do teach it into them. You train that really
Well,
into
and
the
some of it's
family.
just that sticking with it. It's
Mm,
like we are
yeah.
stuck together, we're going to stay together, and we're going to figure out how to get along, whatever it
Yes.
takes. You know,
Yes.
we had our girls married a little bit later,
Mhm.
and the oldest, it just seemed like she kept trying to work at a job to kind of get out on her own type thing, but it never seemed to work out. And I'm like, well, sweetheart, that this must mean that the Lord wants you to just stay here and stick it out through the relationships and the issues that we've got here. And it was huge because then she married a man with bonus children. And
Oh,
so she ended up with 3 bonus children right off the bat. And
wow.
being the
That's so cool.
oldest and having to deal with all the relationships in our family, I think made a huge difference in how she does that.
Mhm.
And of course, I'm so proud. At this point, I love the babies. I absolutely love the babies. But as a grandma, I am more proud seeing my children be parents. I watch them with their babies and I'm like, oh, wow.
Nothing like it. Nothing
Oh,
like
it's
it.
amazing. It,
Yeah.
it is amazing. Yeah. Those
Oh, I love
grandbabies
it.
are special, but seeing my babies do that, that's really neat.
It
Yeah.
is, it's so precious. Even talking about Matt and Elizabeth still being besties, I laugh because Matt sent me this big, long bunch of, pictures and videos, like, he was sitting and videoing her, little MJ, and it was just absolutely so stinking cute to watch, 'cause it was just that moment of just knowing, like, she's been sending me, like, usually a picture a day, I'll get something. But he's got this, like, he's so like me. I'm gonna send you 25 or 100 pictures and videos, and it was just really cute. But, getting to watch this is truly one of the most beautiful things, and even getting to watch, it's the little training moments, getting to sit back. I lived with Matt for a year with his family during the pandemic, and helped them get military. Man, the demands are so tough. But whenever I was there, it was so fun to actually be there beyond the holiday and watch them like interact. It was the little things that, you just, there's nothing like it. It's such a treasure to watch them whenever they are interacting with their children. And the kids, like, it was funny. Oliver's, he's now about to be 7, such a funny little guy. And I remember one day he said something about Mimi, do you have little babies? You should have babies. I said, your dad was my baby. He said, my dad's a dad. And I said, no, your dad was my baby. And so I pull out, because I am the good mom who's always got my phone close. I said, this is your daddy when he was a baby. He said, oh, no way. And so the next thing he does is he goes to his dad and he says, Dad, you were a baby once. And it was just like, couldn't get over it. And you were Mimi's baby. And it was a moment that I think about how precious that is to get to share everything with them. It's precious. It's really
And
precious.
those when you're in the thick of it, those are those
Mhm.
times that you kind of take for granted, and you're worried about the next thing that needs to be done and the to-do list and all the things, and being able to stop. And I know I would take about a week or at least a weekend, depending on the situation,
Yeah.
and sit down with your stuff and just go through it again with my 3-ring binder and my printouts,
Love it.
and just
A
go through
plus
it.
plus.
Yeah, and my Bible next to me, and highlighting and getting it all together. And my year never went as planned, ever. Ever. God always had a different plan for
Mhm.
what we were doing, but they always learned so much more than what I had planned.
Yes. Yes.
And it was so worth it. So worth it.
Yes. Well, and that comes to one of the things too I learned during the homeschool years is definitely many are my plans, but God's will, and that can sound so noble and so stoic, but no, it was like I couldn't have planned in for life. But education, as Charlotte Mason said, is a life. And it's so priceless, when you look back and you realize, oh my goodness, this was what it was really about. Like, for example, one of my stories is around the book Ministering to the Heart of Your Child. And it's probably a really odd book if you were to look at the sequences of my books. Maybe you guys wouldn't have thought a thing about it because I did write a lot, but the sequence of that book, it bumped out some of the things I had been working on. And the reason for it was because it came from some hard times. And what it was, I mean, my daughter, if you can just put yourself for a moment in a house where like literally everybody was constantly learning something. And I'm talking about we were readers, we were researchers. It was just everybody in the house. We were always learning. And she hit this age around, and she was a girl. Let me just say this. So around 10, 11, and 12, where she wasn't reading well at that age. And I was thinking, what is going on? She's my daughter. That doesn't go by all these statistics and all these studies, which I was into. And it ends up that she was having some issues with visual perception. I couldn't understand why some days at the time she would read perfectly and she knew how, but then it was not consistent enough. Like the next day, she couldn't make things out. And so finally, I ran across research about visual perception, and bingo, we did find the issue, but it wasn't all just that. That some of it took maturity and some of it took some other things. And so I remember going to the Lord before I had the answer. And I remember saying, God, what do I need to buy? So what curriculum would work with
What's
her?
the
Because
pill? The quick pill.
yes, I just want to
Yeah.
buy it and I want to get this over with and I just want to do it. And so that can tell you a little bit about me at the time where God was going to have to work on me. But it was kind of funny. I heard him say minister to her heart. And I remember thinking, that's nice. I guess we'll do that because it's almost summer, but I do need to know what to buy. I don't think you heard me. And so, anyway, during the summer, I can't begin to tell you, like literally that day, I saw that she was like so exasperated, which we don't want our children exasperated. We know what the Bible says about that. And what it was, she was constantly in trouble. And I was having a struggle just finding things to say, wow, you did a great job on this. Because it was like, as soon as she would do a great job, it was like, bam, something crazy would happen. And it was just a really hard season. And the Lord started working on me about just speaking into her, speaking into life and being consistent with the discipline, giving her ways to succeed, on and on and on. So anyway, long story short, it ends up that at the end of that summer, I was still not sure what to buy. And I was like, okay, God, we got to start the school year. And so one night we were doing our Bible reading right around that same time. And she asked if she could read the Bible that night. And I'm thinking, I don't want her to have another go backwards thing. We had a good summer. It was a really sweet, everything it seemed to turn around where she kind of got ahead of some of her misbehaviors and all that good stuff. But I wasn't wanting her to fail. It's funny, we talked about that earlier. I didn't want her to fail. And so I was kind of like real hesitant. She said, Mommy, you let Matthew read. Can I read? And I said, okay, I'll be glad to help you. And so she starts to read and she continues to read and she continues to read and she continues to read. And by this point, I'm weeping in awe, going, ministering to her heart was what was needed. And of course, the maturity. We now know that her eyes were able to kind of catch up. She wasn't under the stress of feeling like she couldn't, the failures in other areas. So it was like she just stepped right into that year like she had never missed a beat. Like she had had the perfect curriculum, which I guess she did. It was just
Yeah.
ministering to
Yeah.
her heart. It was mommy ministering to her
Uh-huh.
heart.
Yeah.
And so I look at all the, the stories and the different things, and I look back and I think, man, I'm so blessed that I got to do life with them and got to be a part of them, not just learning academics, which they got that very well. I mean, they both have done very well, but also relationship, also family memories. Also, they've got to be part of our family businesses. They've got to minister in places that a lot of people never even have gotten to serve and love on people. And so I look back and I think, wow, what a beautiful journey we had. It
Oh,
was amazing.
definitely. Yeah. The character and the relationships to me, if you can get that down and they
Hmm.
just learn how to read, then they can
Yeah.
learn anything.
Oh,
The
yes.
world is at their fingertips. They can learn anything. And I have loved seeing my children continue to learn
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
continue to take what they've learned and put a biblical perspective with it.
Right.
And just to see that growth in the Lord and that growth in everything that they do and just to continue the
Mm.
adventure. It's the most wonderful thing.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, I look at it now and, people at the beginning when the kids were first leaving, getting ready to leave home and they were, growing up, people were like, well, you're going to have a hard time with letting them go. And I will say that one book I have not finished that should be probably on my agenda every day now, but one that I haven't finished, but I've got the title for it, was There Is No Easy Way. And it meant to let them go. There wasn't an easy way to just let
Mhm.
go. But on the other side of all of that, it is like exactly why I did what I did through the years. It's exactly what I heard, from the Lord, like, Cindy, be patient, be kind, no, they're going to get to the other side. And they are there. And it's so beautiful when you see that. And of course, I say homeschooling never ends, is one of my things I say all the time, because parenting never ends. And you're
Right.
always training, you're always hearing God, like, what do they need from me today? What do they need, Lord?
Mhm.
And most of the time, He keeps telling me, is it being a cheerleader for them,
Mhm.
being a place where they have a safe place for them to come, and I will listen. I mean, that is the greatest ministry to the hearts of our children that we'll ever do. But it's just beautiful. You look at it and it was so much more than another method of education. I knew that early into homeschooling. There was more going on, but it
Yeah.
was so much more. And I pray that those of your audience that are homeschooling, or maybe they've got grandchildren that are about to be homeschooled, that they'll know that God is doing something big. He's doing something amazing in the lives of those children, and He's preparing them perfectly. We may not be the perfect mom. There is no such thing. And
But
somebody
we
thinks they are.
serve a perfect God. Yes.
We do serve a perfect God. And, the thing is, God does something in homeschooling that is truly perfect preparation for whatever God has got for them to do.
I
We may
agree.
not even know it. And
Yeah.
and that's some of that. There is no easy way. Sometimes we think it's a certain way, and it can be something totally different. And I remember in particular, I didn't think that my son was going to join the military, if you can imagine. And I remember whenever he told me that he felt called to do it, to join the military, I said, "Make me understand why." And it was in that tone, "Make me
Make me
understand why."
understand why.
Some mom just got liberated here and that.
Oh.
But he told me, he said, "Mom, if I were held captive somewhere in a foreign land by an enemy, wouldn't you want somebody like me to rescue me? Wouldn't you want someone to rescue me as a captive?" And I thought back all those prayers I had read of our family being part of rescuing captives and setting them free. And it's not just on a spiritual side.
Didn't
And
realize that you had actually prayed for it.
ask for it. What was wrong with me? one of the things that he told me, he said, Mom, that's my wine. He said, you've got the big vision. You know what God's going to do with me overall. He said, but now's the time where God's going to give me the stepping stones. And you've just got
Amen.
to trust him that God will give me the stepping stones. And I remember at that point surrendering my will for God's will and for trusting God with my son. And I've never been more blessed than watching and watching what he did each step of the way. It was beautiful. And so it's same thing with my daughter, I mean, by that point I was like, you should join the military. It's like crazy. But
Oh
no,
my goodness. That really is it though. That really is it.
yeah,
It's the whole it's a journey. It's an adventure. It's
yes,
not just a one-time classroom situation. It's a lifelong adventure. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing
yes,
with us today. And let's see, people can find you at cindyrushton.com
yes,
and all
yes,
of your amazing encouragement there. You've also got some encouragement on Facebook if they look you up there. I
yeah.
love that. So I definitely suggest that you check her out and follow her in all the places. And let's see, you have a podcast as well.
My podcast has been on a hiatus, but I'm looking after when I get my December to do some recording and have it back in rolling as of the new year. And we still have all the homeschooling books and things there on my website too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if those are
Great.
things that encourage you guys, we'll just do like a coupon HS for homeschool mom, and that'll give you guys 50% off if you want
Oh,
something
how
there.
nice. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on. And remember to subscribe if you haven't and leave a comment and all that kind of stuff. And this is Donita from prairiedusttrail.com, guiding weary hearts through the dust storms of life on an adventurous journey in sustainable living with prairie simplicity and pioneer resilience. And remember, you can make it through the dust storms of life with God's divine help. My Zoom is about to end, so